So I already have a pretty low grocery budget, I would say. I usually spend about $60 a week on groceries. But after getting laid off earlier this month, I wanted to challenge myself and honestly had no other choice than to cut my budget down even further. And so I was able to get it down by about 50%. Now I'm spending about $25 a week on groceries. And I think it's important to note that I'm trying to do this in a way that is still nutritious and healthy. So a couple of years ago, I've mentioned this before on this channel, but I was in over 6 figures of tax debt and I was aggressively trying to pay that off. So back then I was spending about the same, $25 a week on groceries, but I was not eating enough calories and I was mostly eating like garbage-ish food. So this time around, I really wanted to try and be a little bit more responsible and respect myself a little bit more while doing it. And this is how I've done it so far. So the first thing that I did was I took stock of everything in my freezer and my pantry. And honestly, I've only been living in this apartment for a couple of months, so I didn't have the biggest back stock, but I did eat everything that I had laying around. So for a couple of days in a row, I ate frozen gyozas that had a little bit of like the frostbite on them in the back of the freezer, but I just kind of like brushed it off and ate them. They were fine. I've also done things like I took an old wheel of camembert cheese that I had in my fridge and used it to make kind of like a creamy pasta sauce to pair with the dried penne that I had in my pantry. So that was okay. And then I've also been doing things like having canned vegetables with rice and then a side of just like protein powder, like a protein smoothie on the side. And I think that like none of these meals are particularly fancy or even like cohesive, but they're sustenance and that's kind of all that matters. I feel like I had to relearn that in a way. Like for some reason, I kind of fell into this idea that if you're cooking at home, like it's either going to be like toast or it should be something that's elaborate and fancy, and kind of breaking down that barrier and realizing that it's just about sustenance has been one of the easiest ways that I cut down on my grocery bill while still eating a relatively balanced diet. And then the next thing that I've done and I will continue to do is find swaps where appropriate. So I'm actually mostly plant-based. I'm technically pescatarian, but I don't eat a lot of fish. I do eat a lot of tofu. And tofu is actually pretty expensive. So one of the swaps, like the biggest example of a swap that I've made, is switching tofu for dried lentils, which I feel like probably has a pretty similar amount of protein. And you can't even like compare the price difference, although I will compare it when I'm editing this and I'll put it up on the screen. I also want to start making my own tempeh. So my friend Dwi, who is Indonesian, brought me back the kind of like starter fungus stuff that you need to make tempeh. So I have that. I just need to get soybeans and basically muster up the confidence to actually do this at home. I will probably do it when I run out of lentils and I need to find another source of protein, so I will report back. And then the next thing that I did, which I'm hesitant to criticize, I don't want to criticize prepackaged foods or convenience foods, because I know for people who have physical disabilities it can be harder and also frustrating for people to tell you to cut down on the convenience food to save money. I have psoriatic arthritis, and for a while I couldn't really use my hands properly, so the thought of like chopping or doing anything that was like required a lot of movement in my hands, it wasn't really feasible. Now thankfully I don't have that problem, so for me this is something that works, but I get that it doesn't work for everyone. But I've started swapping out things like, so for example, I used to eat a Montreal bagel every morning at breakfast, and a couple of weeks ago I switched from bagels to English muffins because they were cheaper. But in the past 2 weeks I decided to start making my own bread, which seems really daunting, but I actually had someone in my comments say that they make their own flatbread, and that inspired me to look up flatbread recipes. So as it turns out, There are some really cheap and easy flatbread recipes on the internet. I will link in the description the recipe that I was using, but I have absolutely no culinary skills. Like, I will tell you, I am not blessed in the kitchen that way, but these flatbreads are super easy to make. And I calculated with the flour, oil, a little bit of sugar, and baking powder, it's like less than 16 cents per serving. So you really can't beat that. And they're pretty good, honestly. I thought that they would taste more like a tortilla. They're kind of more like a pastry, but they're filling in the morning and they're basically free. Like, I had all of the ingredients already in my pantry from when I was baking a couple of months ago. So that was something that I could just completely eliminate from my budget and still have the sustenance of having bread at breakfast time, which is great. And it's super fast to do as well. I don't really have, my kitchen is not that equipped, so I just prepare the dough in my little popcorn bowl, and then I rolled it out using a old pasta sauce jar that I washed and kept in my pantry. So it's like really no frills, but it worked out just fine. Honestly, they like turned out, and that's what I'll be making moving forward. Another swap that I did was that I completely replaced the Lara bars and the Cliff bars that I was bringing to my French classes at night. So I don't have a lot of time to eat a meal during my French class, and that's why I was bringing these like protein bars to class, but they're so expensive. They're more than $2 per bar. And I had planned to make something like a protein cookie or a protein bar using this protein powder that my friend Megan gave me. But I didn't want to have to buy things like milk or eggs or anything like that. So I actually ended up finding a recipe for no-bake protein balls. And it's so easy to make. Honestly, like, the fact that I'm saying it's easy to make, like, trust me, it's so easy. I will link it in the description as well. It's basically just rolled oats, which I got at the dollar store, peanut butter, which I also got at the dollar store, protein powder, and a little bit of maple syrup. And I calculated the cost per ball, and it's less than 20 cents a ball. And I take about 2, sometimes 3 to French class with me. So that cuts down the cost of the Lara bars. And they're actually like incredibly filling because it's mostly rolled oats and also protein powder. It's like, it sits in my stomach well, like it doesn't hurt my stomach. It doesn't feel like I'm too full, but it keeps me satisfied and it keeps my energy up in the evenings in French class. So that has been a really great swap as well. The next one is that I switched out my fun drinks. So I've mentioned this in other videos. I'm a sucker for little treats and I work from home. So when I'm at home, I like having a variety of fun beverages that I can sip on throughout the day. And I also like having a fun beverage on Fridays when I have my pizza Friday night. So for a while, I know it's not the healthiest, but I had cans of Diet Coke in my fridge and I would have one of those like in the afternoon as a little pick-me-up. And on Fridays, because I'm not drinking alcohol right now, I would buy ginger beer, like an organic ginger beer in a can. And that was easily about $10 a week for the ginger beer and around $8 a week for the Diet Coke. So I didn't want to give up having a fun drink throughout the week, but I just couldn't justify spending that money. So I actually ended up buying this iced tea powder at the dollar store, which, don't come at me, I know it's not a healthy drink, but it's not horrible. It's just a lot of sugar. And I think it was $5 for the whole tin, and the whole tin has lasted me 2 weeks and it's not even half empty yet. So it's super easy. I just put the powder in with some water in this little carafe that I bought in Istanbul, and I add some ice, and I don't know, it gets me through the day. It still feels like a fun drink, and it's like probably around 20 cents a serving. So, and then along with that, I have started switching my coffee for tea. So I'm a big coffee drinker. I would often have a French press in the morning, and then I would make another French press and bring it to French class with me at night. But I have switched to just 1 French press a day. And then after that's gone, I have tea in the afternoon, and I bring tea to French class with me. So I love Earl Grey tea with a little bit of vanilla soy milk, but even that I decided to cut out. So I'm switching my tea consumption from Earl Grey to green tea, because then I won't have to buy milk anymore. Which sounds sad, but actually I think switching to Earl Grey tea with no milk is also a healthier option, and I like the taste of it, so we're good in that department. I'm also swapping fresh fruit for frozen fruit. So before I was laid off, I would buy whatever berries were on sale at the grocery store, like the little clamshell of fresh berries, and I would have that every morning with my breakfast, like a handful of berries on the side, which I love doing, and I think it's important to have, some fruit in your life. But I have since switched to this greens powder that I had in my pantry. I mix that with water in the morning, and because it's free, I paid for it. It was expensive when I bought it, but right now it's free. And once that's gone, then I'm going to start buying frozen fruit instead of fresh fruit. So I kind of scoped it out at my grocery store. You can get, it's like almost like a pound, I think, of frozen blueberries, like frozen Canadian blueberries, for $5. And that's what I was paying for the little clamshell of fresh berries. And I read online that frozen blueberries, when you let them thaw at room temperature, they end up kind of retaining the same taste and consistency as fresh berries, so that shouldn't be an issue. And I'll also be buying frozen vegetables as well. So I already sometimes do that. Like, I buy frozen spinach quite a lot and I make it with rice. But I think I will also start buying like frozen carrots, frozen green beans and stuff like that, and having that with a side of rice. Maybe like a stir fry. I don't know, there's lots of options, but basically replacing fresh produce with frozen is my next plan. So the next one's kind of sad. It's not that sad, but I used to often buy milk chocolate as a treat, and also iced coffee, like, those big like liter bottles of cold brew at the grocery store. I would buy those often as a pick-me-up, and I just decided to stop. Cold turkey, no more little treats like that. But I don't even walk by those areas in the grocery store anymore, so there's no temptation. And I was probably spending like $10 a week on those, so that has cut down my bill quite significantly. And honestly, I don't really miss it that much. Like, I think when you get into the habit of buying something like that over and over, it becomes less special because it's just habitual. So right now I'm fine without the chocolate and cold brew. And then kind of on the more logistical side, I started keeping a running list of things that I need, like a running grocery list. So for example, I note down things that I know I'm going to need in the next few days or weeks. And then when I'm at the grocery store, if I see it on sale and it's not like something immediately perishable, I buy it. So yesterday, for example, when I went out to buy my frozen pizza for my Friday pizza night, I noticed that the coffee that I buy was on sale for $6. Usually it's $9. I don't need coffee right now, but I will in the next week or two, so I decided to just pick up my coffee then instead of waiting. And I think this one is worth mentioning, even though I've already been doing it like before I was laid off, and it's that I don't mind shopping at the cheapest grocery store in my neighborhood and also the dollar store. I feel like before I was on a frugal living journey, I had some resistance to the idea of doing groceries at the dollar store. But now I see it as kind of just a side quest, and like it feels empowering rather than demotivating to find the cheapest groceries. I always buy pretty much anything that I need, like for my pantry from the dollar store. Like, for example, I bought the peanut butter for my protein balls there and it was $2 as opposed to like $6. And I also bought my oats there and it was like $1.75 for a bag that would be probably double, if not more, in price at the grocery store. So I really just like don't let my pride get in the way anymore. And I think that came from years of living frugally and paying off debt, but also just like growing up. I think for a while I was really concerned with optics and looking as successful as I could. And now I'm just like realistic and would prefer to set myself up behind the scenes than seem outwardly like I'm doing very well, if that makes sense. But yeah, I have no shame rolling up to the Dollarama and getting all of my baking goods from there. I also get most of my pantry like cleaning products from there. I don't know. I like it. I have no problems with it. Now I'm rambling though, so that's how I cut my grocery bill in half. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if you have any further tips for cutting even more. This is not everything that I do to keep my grocery bill low. I feel like I already was practicing like some pretty good habits, but this is just like the changes that I've made in the last 2 weeks that let me bring my grocery bill down from $60 a week to $25 a week. So if you're interested in knowing the other things that I followed to already have a relatively low grocery budget, let me know. I'm happy to share. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Okay, bye.